Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, my name is Angel and today we're going to be doing some more fall DIYs. This first project is one that I wanted to do last year but never got around to it. So I grabbed this wood round from Dollar Tree, and as you can see, I'm just taping up those holes on the bottom side, and then I'm going to flip this over and fill it with some wood filler. I let the wood filler dry for a few hours and then I sanded that down, and I'm going to go in with 2 coats of my Waverly chalk paint in the color Plaster. Then I got on my computer and I just Googled Man in the Moon template and found this cute little template that I traced out onto some regular computer paper. You could also just print this off, but I didn't want to waste any printer ink. Then I grabbed 2 sheets of my carbon paper that I get from Amazon, and I cut that second one down so that I could fit this over the wood round, and then I taped it down, and I'm gonna tape my Man on the Moon template on top of my carbon paper and just use my little tool that came with it to trace out all the little areas on this template. Once I had his face transferred onto the wood round, then I just used a Sharpie marker and started outlining everything and filling everything in. Of course, you can paint this, but I just find it easier to use a marker. For this project, I really wanted to make some chunky candle holders, but I couldn't find any that I really liked or that was what I had in mind. So I grabbed these little edible arrangement vases from my thrift store and some of these little trinket dishes from the Target dollar spot that I also got at the thrift store for 50 cents each, and decided to make my own by just using some gel super glue to attach the little trinket dishes to the tops of these vases. I let that glue completely dry, and then I went in with 2 coats of my white chalk paint and painted over the trinket dish part and also the vase part. Then I grabbed some of these fall leaf molds that I got from Amazon, and I just started making a whole bunch of these little leaves with my air dry clay. A little tip I have if you're using smaller molds for clay is to just take apart little pieces of your clay and actually press it just down inside of the mold. It makes it so much easier than if you use a larger piece and try to pull off all the excess. This just works so much better and it's so much quicker, especially when you're doing a project where you need a whole bunch of these little pieces. After I made a whole bunch of those little leaf molds, then I just kind of arranged it onto my vase the way I wanted it and used some gel super glue to attach my leaves. I let those clay pieces dry overnight, and then I painted them with some of that white chalk paint to make them match the vase. And once that was dry, I went back in with some of my European Gold Rub and Buff and went over all the leaves and the top. For this project, I grabbed one of my wood boxes that I have. I actually have a whole bunch of these that my mom gave me that used to be my grandma's, so I thought I would make one of them over. I started by removing that little front clasp, and then I'm going to go over this with 2 coats of my white chalk paint. And I did end up just leaving the inside of the box the natural wood color. After I had the 2 coats on and they were completely dry, I went back in with my sanding block and just kind of sanded over the edges to distress this. Then I decided I wanted to add green stripes to this, so I just grabbed some painter's tape and made my own by wrapping it all the way around the boxes and just adding some pieces on the back there. Then I mixed up some paint to make this rusty orange color, and I'm gonna go over this entire thing where those stripes are that I made with 3 coats of this. And I made sure to let it dry completely in between the coats. I did end up having a little bit of paint bleed that I had to fix under my painter's tape because I was impatient, and I know I could have avoided that by doing a layer of the white paint over my tape before I did the rusty orange color. Now, I obviously wanted to decorate this box for fall, so I ended up using some of my alphabet stamps from Amazon and my archival ink to write pumpkin seeds, 50 cents per pound, and then I used another stamp that I got from Amazon to place a pumpkin on the top of here with some stems. For this project, I just grabbed one of these wood canvases from the Dollar Tree Plus section and some of these fall leaves that I actually got from Amazon, but you could use any faux leaves that you have that just have a little bit of texture. I started by arranging my leaves kind of how I wanted them, and then I'm just going to use some hot glue to attach these to the wood canvas. Now, I am just making sure that I am pressing these leaves down and kind of just making sure that none of the edges are sticking up. You want these leaves to be as flat as possible on the canvas. Once I had them all down, then I'm going to go back in with another layer of leaves right on top of the other ones that I just glued down. And again, just making sure that these are as flat as possible. Then I grabbed some of my Mod Podge and just kind of poured it over this canvas and the leaves. And here I'm just taking a stenciling brush and kind of dabbing that over the canvas and all my leaves, making sure everything is nice and saturated. I think a stenciling brush or a nice firm brush works best for this, just so you can get a nice amount of Mod Podge down into all the crevices. Now, once I had a nice layer of Mod Podge, I'm going to take apart a napkin and just use the white part of that napkin, and I'm going to press it down with my hands to start, and then I'm going to take that stenciling brush and I'm going to go over this entire thing, making sure that I am pressing it down really well into all the little crevices and little texture on those leaves. You do kind of want to be gentle so that you don't tear the napkin, but if you do, you can always just put another little piece over top of there. Once I finish this, I set it aside to let it completely dry. And after it was dry, I went back in with another layer of Mod Podge, again making sure that I get it all down in those crevices and all over the texture of the leaves. Then I added one more layer of the white part of a napkin and again pressed it down with my hands and then went back in with that stenciling brush, or like I said, you could just use any firm brush, and really pressed it down into all the corners and all over those leaves. And don't worry about any wrinkles or anything like that, because we want this to look really textured. And just like before, once I was finished, I set this aside to let it completely dry. Once it was dry, I just used an X-Acto knife and cut all those edges and extra pieces off. And then I went back in with another layer of Mod Podge all around the corners and the sides of this. And I kind of just used that stenciling brush to press down all those little frayed edges of the napkin. Once that was done, you're again going to want to set this aside to let it completely dry. And at this point, you can choose any color you want to paint over this, but I decided to paint mine white. But I do think this would look really nice in a metallic gold or copper or even silver to make it look like one of those metal signs. I also found it easier to just dab the paint instead of brushing it. Now for the outside of my wood canvas, I just used a baby wipe and some antiquing wax to stain that. And once everything was completely dry, I went back in with some of my European Gold Rub and Buff and went over all the leaves. And that's going to be it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed these fall DIYs. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.